my mom used to have this expression, well, she still does, I guess. She's like, Charissa, you don't like everyone. So why do you think everyone's going to like you? And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, they're not.
Like, right. And I think that this idea of trying to please everyone in whatever capacity, then you're going to fall short of focusing on the people that you do care about.
Okay, it's Thursday, October 27th. This is the Token CEO podcast. I'm Erika. I am the CEO of Barstool Sports. We have an awesome episode today. We've got Charissa Thompson. She is an anchor at Fox Sports. She's pretty awesome. She's sharp, she's witty, she's self-deprecating. She kind of like goes a mile a minute. So I think she had also I think she has a lot of gumption. I think she has a lot of belief in herself. She feels really self-deprecating and honest. She has a podcast with Erin Andrews. She talks about that. She talks about her career at Fox. She talks about growing up and loving sports. And then she becomes the interviewer, which is what she is naturally better at than I am. So it's going to be a great interview and a great show, and a huge thank you to Charissa. All right, so before we get into that, let's talk about something that I don't think is Charissa's favorite thing, which is accounting. Not my favorite thing either, although I am on our finance team like white on rice right now, as my mother would say. Omega Accounting Solutions is an incredible company. Why are they an incredible company? Because they help small business owners figure out their finances. The other reason that they're a great company is they are obsessed with getting small businesses the tax credits they deserve. Probably didn't know this, but big corporations have all sorts of lawyers and all sorts of accountants and all sorts of big three firms which help them get all of the tax benefits possible. Little small businesses, pizza shops, media companies, newsletter companies, influencers, beauty salons, you name it. They don't have big staff accountants and they don't have big three firms working to help them. And what Omega Accounting Solutions does is not only gives you a team of experts that can help you run your finances, but they also make sure and they fight for you to get every tax credit possible. And they help you take advantage of things, especially coming out of COVID, that you might have not known that you could take advantage of. So you can call 1-800-704-2000 or go to omegataxcredits.com and learn more. All right, so talked a little bit about Charissa. Charissa joins me from Los Angeles. She's awesome. I can't wait for you to get a better insight into who she is, what she does, how she got the job she has. What I loved most about her is how the discipline and the commitment and the integrity that she has with her job. I was talking to PFT the other day. I was like, hey, PFT, I interviewed your girl, Charissa. And he's like, oh, I love Charissa. And then PFT went on to tell me a story that Charissa and PFT ran into each other at a Super Bowl a couple years back. And they go to some dive bar, and Charissa is like, I want to get kicked out of this bar. Let's get kicked out of this bar. Now, any woman who sets a mission of getting kicked out of a bar is my kind of woman. So PFT is like, sure. So she and PFT are at the bar. Maybe there's another guy there, I forget. And Charissa lights up a cigarette. And then PFT lights up a cigarette. And Charissa, as PFT tells it, is like, watch this. So the bouncer manager comes over and is basically to PFT like, sir, what the fuck are you doing? I'm going to kick you out. You can't smoke in here, you dirtbag loser, blah, blah, blah. And then turns and smiles at Charissa and is like, ma'am, I'm sure this was a mistake. You should really put down your cigarette. Long story short, they get kicked out of the bar because Charissa Thompson is a woman who seems to get what she wants, which I like. So we're just going to kick it over to her. How are you? Talk to me about Thursday Night Football.
I'm great. Thursday Night Football, without sounding cliche, I couldn't be more excited that it's here. I felt, coming off of being that we're chatting with each other on Monday. I'm wearing my professional blazer.
You look very professional.
Yes. Do not let the blazer from Zara with the hole in the arm fool you. I am not a professional. But no, we were just doing our Zoom call with the media, and it was great, as orchestrated by Amy, and wonderful nonetheless. But I think there's so much conversation in the off season, and even as this possibility was coming to fruition or even thrown out there to begin with. I'm just happy that it's finally here because I love this crew, and it's kind of like the days leading up to Christmas and you do those advent calendars. Like, okay, we ate enough chocolate to get us to the 25th. It's time to do it. And I'm excited to just be a very small part of a big group, and had my show Sunday. And so it got me yesterday. So it got me pumped up, to do it again now on Thursday with a different crew.
Talk a little bit about, you breathe such rarefied air. Like, I think the idea of, a sports and media personality, you're a woman, you cover the biggest, brightest sport there is in the US. Like, how did you get here? Like, give people a glimpse at your story.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting me in the upper echelon. And anytime I hear rarefied air, my mind immediately goes to Michael Jordan, Rare Air, the book that I was obsessed with. And I have 5 versions of the paperback, and they're now yellow because they've sat on the coffee table and they have the ring around them where the other book is sat on top. But nonetheless, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's a book about Michael Jordan and it's incredible. But I always wanted to do this. I think that there's those jobs in life that a lot of people, whether it was, you saying you wanted to play in the NFL, or I want to be a Major League Baseball player, or I want to be a president, or I want to be the CEO of a company. I don't know what it was like, what your journey was like. And I would love to have you on our podcast, because I have more questions.
I know. I want to talk to you about your podcast.
Yes, because as someone who's now starting my own business, just running a business is not my forte. I like the creative side, and I like live television where I'm in and I'm out. And what is what is, as opposed to running a company and it's 24 hours a day and you never stop thinking about it. But to get back to your original question, which I have a tangent, a proclivity to run on and take a circuitous route back to the initial question.
Your SAT words are so good.
No,
you are an SAT word machine.
I do like vocabulary. Let me tell you, it's because I wish that I liked school more when I was in school, because I was just so determined to get to where I wanted to go. I really didn't pay attention in school. I cheated on my art history. I cheated on so many tests, and I look back on it now. I'm like, you asshole, you should have just studied and you could have retained that information. And now you wouldn't have to watch documentaries on, the triforium of a Catholic cathedral. But I always wanted to be a sports broadcaster. I made a little video when I was 11 years old, interviewing my brother, much to his resistance. He was 2 years older than I was. And I was like, Tyson, please just stand there and be Jay Buhner and wear this. It was a free giveaway from a Mariners game of a little batting helmet. And I used a paper towel roll and taped a tennis ball to it. And I used my parents' old school Canon VHS camera. I set it up. There was this half wall they had between the dining room and the living room. And I set it there and interviewed him. And I just always wanted to do this. I have a very close relationship with my dad, and my dad was always watching sports. And so I got to hang out with my dad more when I would sit and watch sports. And he would say, there's no talking when we watch sports. The only talking you're going to do is when I ask you questions, and you're going to answer them, and then you will learn the game. But there's no just chit chatting. So it wouldn't take him away from what he was doing. So, yes, so that's grand in gesture. It's like, oh, I want to be a sports
I love that. Yeah.
So, the quickest, what do they say? Direction between 2 points, or line between 2 points, is a straight line. So as soon as I graduated from college, I didn't go to a school that had a broadcasting program. For me, it was more about location. I wanted to go to school in Santa Barbara. I loved the weather. I love, being from Seattle. I wanted out of the rain. So I chose the school based on the location. But my parents didn't have any money. They were very young when I'm the youngest of 3. They were 23 when they had me. So, I'm at 18 when they had my sister. So they were like, we don't have any money. If you want to go out of state, you're going to have to get residency and go to community college. So I went to community college for the first 2 years, and that was really humbling. I mean, all my friends were at a 4-year and they were going to fraternity and sorority parties, and I'm going to school at night, and working during the day. But I ended up transferring to Santa Barbara. It all worked out. Didn't have student loans. Yay me. So I just got my experience in broadcasting through internships. It was the way that I could, I worked at the local ABC affiliate, then I worked at the local NBC affiliate, and just sort of got hands-on experience that way. And then as soon as I graduated, there was a job opening at Fox Sports. It was in the HR department. So I went out for the interview, and I was answering all the questions wrong. The guy, like, I could tell, I have a pretty good sense of people. And I was like, he is hating this. He's like, this chick is a disaster. No way we're hiring her. He gives me his card. He says, we'll be in touch. But I remember pulling up to that building for the interview and I was like, I have to work here. I have to get in the building. How, the mail room story kind of thing.
Yeah. How can I do this?
Yeah. So walking out of there completely deflated from an interview I was, terrible in, I was like, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. So I called him from the parking lot and I said, and he answered because the job was for his assistant. So he's answering his own phone at this point. And he said, who is this? And I go, well, we just had an interview together and it was terrible. And I want to tell you, I lied. I don't want to work in HR. And I just came clean about everything I wanted and why I wanted to take the interview. He called me back 2 weeks later and he said, the job is yours because HR is all about honesty. And we want to give people the opportunity to, live out their dream. But I just need 1 year of you being an assistant and then I'll help you on your path to the next thing you want to do. So I worked in production after that, went to Denver, so on and so forth.
Were you a good assistant?
I was a decent assistant at the beginning because I felt so, I felt like I owed him that, because whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just it went off the rails because then I was going up to highlights at night. It was basically I'm in a building of all the things I want to do. So I would go log tapes. I would do all these things and it's HR. So it was a violation to stay after 8 hours. So I wouldn't tell him. And then I would sneak upstairs and I made friends with the highlight supervisor. And I was like, Randy, do not tell Rob that I'm down here. And I was like, how do we log tapes? How do I do highlights? And
teach me.
Yeah. So I was a decent assistant, but the truth was I wasn't a great one.
It was a short-lived career.
Correct.
Yep. I got you. Okay. And now you've got the big job. So describe that. What is it like? Do you feel it's so hard? This isn't I think it's so hard. I think it's so competitive. I think about women covering sports and I'm like, God, there's just so few. And then there's even fewer who know what the fuck they're talking about. And is this good? Is this bad? And it's so competitive and you're produced by a bunch of men. How is it?
The way that I should answer this question is how you would answer the question about your rise to where you are. I mean, there's very few women like yourself in the position that you're in. So I will answer it because you asked me the question, but I'm curious to know the similarities of my response and what yours would be.
Okay, you go first.
Authenticity has always been a huge thing for me. I am so fearful of ever being called a fraud that I have a habit of oversharing because I just don't want anyone to be like, ooh, gotcha. So if I have a zit, I say I have a zit. If my extensions are showing I have an extension. If I got something wrong, I'm like, ooh, I fuck that up. I try to say everything that I think anyone else will already say about me. And I take that power away. I had a terrible situation. My phone was hacked and private pictures between me and a boyfriend got put on the internet. After I got myself up out of the fetal position on the floor and said my life is over, I remember Fox, my executives, calling me and being like, we're putting you on a plane. You are coming to the NFC Championship game with us. And we are here for you. This is not your fault. You're a victim of this. Your job is secure. And even to this day, I think about that is so rare. Most businesses in most places.
They would abandon you.
Completely. Instead, they surrounded me with the people that I care about the most. And that's why Fox, for me, has always been family. And even in the infancy of Amazon, it feels exactly the same way. I've had that relationship with Tony. I've known Richard for a decade and now Fitz is everyone's best friend. So if you can create, as I know you guys have there, an atmosphere that is family, then people will work harder for you if they're invested, right? How do I stay in this position? That's for the brass to decide, right? I ultimately don't get to make that decision. I would stay doing this job forever. But authenticity is number one for me. Humility is number two. You are not better than the cameraman. You are not better than the lighting person. Having worked in HR, having worked in production, I always tried to remember what I felt like on the other side of that. Go above and beyond. I hate the talent label. That is my least favorite word. And the minute that you think that you are that, I think it's the end, because there's a lot of talented individuals and women that can sit where I sit. I would like to believe that it's the other stuff that keeps me there. But so yeah, so authenticity, humility, and honestly, just fucking working hard. Like I've always
I like
hard.
that.
I watched my mom, my parents didn't have money, as I mentioned. And I remember I would go and clean houses with her on the weekend on Saturdays, because I get $5, and she worked at the school during the day. She worked as a waitress at night. My dad had 2 jobs, like just work. And I think for me, this path, albeit, different in terms of starting in HR and not a small market, I've stayed at every Holiday Inn in the Midwest from working in the Big Ten. I remember I put my stuff in a storage unit for 3 months because I was on the road. I didn't literally need anywhere to live. And that's not saying I'm some kind of hero. It's opportunities have presented themselves, and I don't ever want to say.
And you took them.
I don't ever want to say no, which is probably why my personal life, truthfully, has suffered a lot, because I have put, which I'm okay with. That's also picking the wrong people. But I always think there might not be another call to do this. So figure out a way to
I have the same fear. Yeah, I get that. I talked to Barbara Corcoran once, and she calls it successfully insecure, which is such a great way to describe it. But that's what it is, where most successful people, or many successful people, are just always afraid of, like, I'm not going to get that next call. Like, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get the job. I'm not going to get the look. I have that. I think most sorry, Chris.
Oh, no, you're good. I was watching the David Letterman series. I love his interviews because as someone who interviews people, I just like, the style, like his style of doing things. And he was interviewing Billie Eilish, and she was talking about the imposter syndrome. And basically, like, you don't think, you believe in your talent, but you're like, holy shit, like, should I even be here? And that idea, he was saying he felt the same way, being on his show for all those years. But he said, don't lose that, because then you always will keep that humility and never think like, oh, I've arrived,
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice.
What do you say? Like, in your situation, like a man's world, blah, blah, blah.
I say I'm similar to you, which is I always like to work. Like I never had like a grand vision for my career. It was like I always had to scrap my way in and work my way up. And I don't think about being a woman that much at work. That's what I love about Barstool. Like it's basically a collection of like misfits and geeks. And it, in an odd way, is very accepting for people as they are. And I was just given the chance to build something. And I was like, I want nothing more than to build this thing. And I am like so fiercely proud of what we've built here. And it's interesting when you have a career that, like, your career is public, right? Like my career has become public. Like the public, and Barstool is very public, and it's the public life of a bunch of private individuals, and it's an odd dynamic in a way. But I think women can do anything they want. I think anybody can do anything they want, so long as you are willing to work hard, and you're willing to take feedback, and you're willing to learn. It's like your dad being like, shut the fuck up, sit in the chair and spoke when you're spoken to, and learn the game. I think that's a little bit of what's missing for people now, is that they want your job, right? They want to host NFL kickoff, and then they'll work on how they get to hosting NFL kickoff. Like everybody wants the prize without the process.
Yeah.
And I mean, this, like when you get to something, if you don't go through the process, you can't keep the prize.
Completely. And for me, it's driven by that fear that it might not be, I've never been shy about, there's always going to be someone younger or prettier or smarter.
Definitely.
All these things, It is a medium that's taking pride in, you do need to work out, or I do need to get prepared and whatever. But I also think that, I hate when it's like, oh, how do you feel about being in a man's world? It's like, it's more of a compliment to the men that I've also been around. I've had some fucking amazing men take me in like their sister and be protective. And that's, I've felt that at Fox. I only worked at ESPN for a little bit, but I got so freaking lucky that the guys there, I still have great relationships with. And I think it's about not not trying to be like, don't be an asshole is really what it comes down to for me, and asking the questions on how you can get better. And, I've done this and been lucky enough to do this for 15 years. But when I met with my now boss at Amazon, before the season started and we did our rehearsals, I made a list of things that I think make a good host. And then I wanted to know what his list was. And for me, it's important to set the expectations, because maybe what I think makes a good host is different. And then the year ends and he's like, oh, this chick did a terrible job. It's like managing expectations, whether it's in a relationship, that is in friendship, that's in a personal relationship or business. And because then you go and at the end of the year, you go, okay, where did we align here? Where was some deviation, and how can we continue to get better? And I love criticism. I always try to think, as an athlete, like you're 17, if you still want to play, how are you getting better? And watching Brady last night, like fucking hey, like I love that. Like you want to still be a winner, and who cares if you're embarrassed about X, Y, or Z, or you got to say, actually, no, I do want to come back and play. Like,
it doesn't matter.
I think a big part of that too for you, and I know, some of those guys over there were always great to me too, like PFT and the big hats. And
they're great. They're great guys.
That thing of be steadfast in your position. Like, don't like apologize if you do something wrong, but don't be apologetic.
Yeah, that's right. What do you think it takes to be a great host?
Making sure that your objective is to put every person around you in the best position that you can. If don't leave them hanging, try to get them involved where they can. If they're stumbling, fill in the blanks. If they say something wrong, put it on me. I always like to look at it like the quarterback position, even if the guy on the desk, for all intents and purposes, is the receiver and he ran the wrong route. Don't call him out in the post game. Like, don't hang these guys out to dry. They're going to help you and you're going to help them. And if you work collectively together, and stay out of the way a little bit. I think that for me, I look as a host as like a referee or an umpire in a game. If you're the story, then you're doing too much. I love and I know that I've earned the right to sit at that desk, but I also didn't play for 17 years, Tony Gonzalez. I didn't play. I'm not a Hall of Famer, if it's Ryan Fitzpatrick or Richard Sherman and as a Super Bowl champ. So I don't need to pretend that I'm so smart. I mean, my position should warrant that I'm smart enough to have it. Now give these guys the ball and get the fuck out of the way a little bit, So I think even though I love to talk, as evidenced by the word count on this podcast, I think it's important for me to remember when to talk and when not to talk and distribute the ball.
Who do you think a great host is?
Ernie Johnson.
Like, do you know?
The first thing, I mean, like, because when you deal with massive personalities like that, and when you know that anything can be said or anything, it's that perfect balance to, if we're way over here, we got to get back over here. And if you can settle in the middle. So, I mean, I think he's great. I have the utmost respect for, the Colin Cowards of the world and the Dan Patricks, the guys that do these hour-long shows and have done them for decades. It's hard. I used to say to Colin all this, like, how do you talk to yourself for 3 hours? And
he has such a radio voice. Like, I can't imagine having an IRL conversation with Colin Coward. Like, I talked to Colin Coward and I'm like, am I on the radio right now?
That's so funny. No, I think I love.
He probably like yells at his kids like you're about to go to commercial break. You know what I mean? Where it'd be like, and next. You know what host I love is I love the woman who anchors who anchors the Premier League coverage. Rebecca Lowe, right? Is it Rebecca Lowe?
I want to say Lowe, but now I think of Rebecca Lobo and I'm like,
no, it's Rebecca Lowe.
It is Rebecca Lowe. Yeah, she does a great
Rebecca
job.
Lowe is a boss.
Yeah.
I like Rebecca Lowe. That's amazing. Okay, and do the NFL people get pissed off about the Amazon thing, or do they they?
Oh no, they're the reason that I can do it. Okay. I have got to give full credit to Fox, and they've always been amazing this way, the same way that Michael does GMA or Aaron used to do Dancing with the Stars.
Okay.
They are a network that wants to see their people, have success.
Thrive on other networks.
It's unique because it's the same space, but there's not competition. We don't have a Thursday night game. So they look at it as like, oh, you're continuing to talk about the NFL.
This is additive.
Exactly. And I love that because it doesn't feel selfish of like, no, you're our,
that's smart. Is ESPN like that or not?
ESPN is my experience at ESPN was very different. I don't know if they've changed. I remember having to get
I don't think they're like that.
No.
We're not like that either. I'm like, you're mine and nobody else's.
Why do you operate that way?
We used to operate that way more so than we do now, because it was like we wanted to build what we were, like, and we wanted to do it so differently. Like, it took us, when we put PFT and Big Cat and Van Talk on ESPN, it was so hard for us because we were trying so feverishly to build our own identity. So it was like, this is Barstool. And when you go on,
identities.
Right, but when you go on, when you go on somebody else's network, you know how it is. It's like, ooh, it's their rules, it's their environment, and your voice changes and your personality changes. And we felt that was in some ways competitive or watering down of what we were, or confusing, I guess, to what we were trying to create. Now you see it more, like Biz is on, Biz Nasty's on TNT with Gretzky, which I think is an amazing accomplishment for him. It's additive for us. It's good for Turner. So it's a little bit of a different world now, but in the early days when I was here, the 2016 to 2020 years, we would never do it.
Will you double, not to be like, hey, here's your bio, your own life, but like doubling your valuation from the time you got there to, the following year? Like, what is it for someone? I started an interior design business during COVID because
fun.
Idle time is not good for me. And I always think that I travel a lot. And so I think home should be a sanctuary, and I think it should be a reflection of who you are. I can go into a whole thing about that, but more importantly, just the entrepreneurial part of that, I'm having a difficult time because the more business I get in it, the less I get away from the creative. So what do you attribute your success? How were you able to be so successful when you arrived at Barstool? And what advice would you give to me who's trying to start my own company or just continue to maintain my own position in other people's companies?
I think that, you get it. It's being authentic. Like, when I got to Barstool, I was so lucky. Like, I loved Dave. We had a great partnership from the jump. He trusted me. I trusted him. We worked well together. I think sometimes what's hard when you see it probably now with your interior design business, which is you're fucking busy. Like, you're here on Thursday night, you're there on Sunday. You need to trust, if you truly want to scale that business, you need somebody who's back at the ranch figuring out how to manage customers, how to, get the stuff in, blah, 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 blah. And Dave and I always had that. I think for anybody, it's like, it's not that different from what you mentioned, which is you have to be super consistent. So what is your business? What are you trying to do? What does winning look like? Yeah. What are you going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to make that happen? How do you keep moving, things forward? Like, for your interior design business, like, what's needed to take it to the next step. Are you willing to do it? And I think that may mean bringing help. That may mean dedicating more time. That may mean pivoting. And I think just, you got to be real with yourself and you've got to be disciplined.
Yeah. I'm going to put it on the back burner just for right now during the season, because it's my sole focus is just
of course
football. But yeah, I think,
but maybe you bring somebody to help you. Like, I interviewed this fascinating woman last week, Carla Welsh. So Carla Welsh, I don't know if is a stylist. And then she's created 2 companies on the side of being a stylist. So she's Olivia Wilde's stylist. She does Sarah Paulson. She does Hailey Bieber. Like, she does all these big people. Yeah. She's running around at every film festival imaginable, every celebrity possible. And then she built 2 other businesses because she found a partner. And that's the thing too of it, is I think sometimes you need a partner.
Well, delegating, it's like you're, can't do it,
which is tough
on your own. But yeah, I think, for Amazon, like, this being a new platform for us, right? I mean, the Prime Video part and people having where do I get it? It's like all those questions and things. How do you at Barstool, how did you handle criticism when you knew you believed in the product? And I'm saying it's it's just more of the questions of people not being familiar with a streamer or not, it takes a second for people to get used to something, or like their immediate reaction is not what it's going to be, as bringing it back to our initial conversation about week 1 at Amazon is not going to be week 18. Yeah. So how did you
look? You guys are going to fuck 1,000 things up. You're going to get it wrong. They're going to do it it's not going to be perfect. I think there's 2 things. Like for us, there's what something looks like at the beginning versus what it looks like at the end, which is, I think, kind of the Amazon thing. And then there's people who just don't like you. Like when I got here, people just don't like Barstool. Like they still don't like Barstool. And
do you worry? You don't worry about those people then? You go, okay, you're over.
Yeah, I'm never going to convince you otherwise. And it's a waste of my talent and my time and my breath to explain to people who don't want to be convinced about why this thing is great. But then the other thing is you have to have discipline of week 1, people aren't going to know where to go. Everyone's going to bitch about the Chiefs game and be like, this wasn't great on Amazon. I miss my linear experience with it. A year from now, people will abandon a linear experience for it. So you just got to make the product as best you can, be as great as possible in creating it, be steadfast in the promotion of it, and they'll follow.
Yeah, I just always, and that's, we have incredible people who are doing all that. But I remember when I got to the Big Ten Network, it had just started. And my first game was the Michigan App State game that ended up being a huge upset in college football. But no one had seen the game because it was on this new network. And there was, the kind of growing pains of that. But yeah, I just think I'm always interested for someone like yourself who's at a very polarizing, and you run a very polarizing company and have so much success in spite of the naysayers. So I think
I think you have to believe, you've got to believe in Amazon. You clearly believe in Fox. You believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, there's no question about my belief in my new platform. I'm so excited to be a part of it. I was just
definitely
in life, sort of how, because my mom used to have this expression. Well, she still does, I guess. She's like, Charissa, you don't like everyone. So why do you think everyone's going to like you? And I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, they're not.
Right. And I think that this idea of trying to please everyone in whatever capacity, then you're all short of focusing on the people that you do care about. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to the PLL championship this weekend, and I'm on the board of the PLL, and they're the nicest 2 people on the planet. The Rabel brothers are the nicest 2 people. But they want to make everybody happy. And I'm like, guys, people are not going to like you. You should lean into that. Find a problem, create a controversy, be the controversy, and lean into it. And amazing things can happen.
Let's not, that's really important. So you want it to create a controversy.
I think if you have an opinion or you create a reaction. Reactions are incredible things. A reaction means relevance, right? So the more reaction you can generate, the more relevant you are. And reactions are good and they're bad, right? And it doesn't, frankly, really matter, because we live in such a polarized world right now that to be relevant, there, I think, needs to be something where you have a take, right? This is a business built on takes. My business is built on takes. In the case of a sport, you have to have a villain. You know this. Who's your Dennis Rodman? Who's your bad boy? Or bad girl. And I don't think those things, I think you've got to not, people's instincts in media, I think, are to make things smooth and calm and PRable. And people's instincts as humans are to shy away from conflict or controversy. And I think if you abandon those things, then things become really interesting and really relevant.
I hadn't thought about that. Someone, I've worked with Skip Bayless in different, when I was fill in over at on First Take when I was over there. And then, of course, he's over at Fox. And of course, there's a lot of opinions about someone like Skip or Stephen A. or Colin or insert person here or Dave. But it's they said, the whole idea is like, if you're not memorable, like if you fall in between and you're not polarizing, then you're forgettable. I'm in a different situation, I think.
You are.
And I'm not interested in being, I remember when Michelle Beadle left Sports Nation and they put me with Colin and they were like, okay, you guys are going to debate. I'm not a natural debater. I'm inquisitive by nature. Like I would rather ask you questions than like you ask me questions, because I want to know more. There's a detective part of me and unearthing things. So I don't need to fight with you like, oh, Erika, I disagree with you on that. It's like, oh, why do you think that? Or why do
you're like, that's interesting. That makes me think about totally.
Yeah,
that's not your bad. Also, if frankly, in your job and in your role, in my role, it doesn't behoove me to create controversy or to be polarizing, right? Like I'm trying to build something. In your role, you're trying to create trust so that you can move a conversation, a very tightly edited conversation, around a very talkative, diverse group of people. And so that's a little bit different in your role and my role, but it's just interesting overall. All right, I loved this. I would love to talk to you more. I have to go to a meeting now.
You are very busy. Thank you for taking time out. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I can't wait to see you. This is my Travis Mathew jacket. I just want to apologize to the people at Travis Mathew because I've been calling it Travis Matthews. That's like when I go meet people and they're like, how's Barstools? And I'm like nails on a chalkboard. So I apologize to the people at Travis Mathew for calling them Travis Matthews. Anyways, regardless, I wore this jacket on the train this morning. I think it's awesome. I think it looks cute with my outfit. It's super comfortable. I feel like I can put it on the floor of the train and then wear it and then sit on it on my chair, and it still holds up. What's awesome about Travis Mathew is that they are now making women's clothing. So not only do they make jackets, but they make quarter zips, they make pullovers. Everything is super soft, very high quality, and best yet, it is extremely durable. All right, so if you go to Travis Mathew, not Matthews, travismathew.com and use code TOKEN, you can get 20% off my jacket or your jacket. That's 20% off your entire order at travismathew.com. Not two T's, one T. travismathew.com and use code TOKEN for 20% off. All right, so that was Charissa. She's fabulous. Let's talk Boardroom, and then we're going to talk about football because that's what Charissa knows best. Boardroom, what's been going on here? We have a huge meeting today with Penn, so we've got all the brass from Penn coming in today. I'm excited about it. I invited them to come in so that we could have a conversation with them about just the landscape. I think one of the things that happens when you're about to get acquired, or you've recently been acquired, or you're merging two companies together, or frankly, you're just trying to introduce what your group does at a company to another group, I think it's really easy to make a lot of assumptions that everybody knows what's great about your business, what's hard in your business, what you're stuck on, what you're challenged with, what you're afraid of. So we're having this meeting today to have exactly that conversation with Penn. What I'm excited about in the conversation is we walk down our entire business. So we're like, this is how we make content. These are our advantages. This is what's incredible about it. This is what differentiates Barstool from everyone else. Then we also talk about, here's what's holding us back. Here's where we're inefficient. Here's where we don't know what we don't know. And here's where we're dependent on other people and other platforms to grow our company. So we're having that conversation about social media and content. We're having a conversation about advertising and ad sales. I don't know if anyone who listens to this paid attention to Snapchat's earnings last week, but they were abysmal. Stock went down, I think, 25%. Everyone is being like, the ad industry is imploding. The ad industry is imploding. I met with a reporter yesterday and she was like, oh, all we want to know is about the softening in the ad market. You know what's important for our business with Penn is to be honest and say, hey, huge amount of uncertainty, crazy headwinds out there around the ad business. That's important for Penn to know, and that's important for us to talk about. So we talk about that with our ad business. We talk about our commerce business. Where does our commerce business sit today? Where do we think it could be tomorrow? We talk about the brand, right? What does it mean to keep Barstool Barstool? How are we going to keep Barstool Barstool now that we're owned by someone else? It's funny. So the guy I have, Will Walker, the guy I have putting it together is like, diligently putting the thing together, like diligent, slides get developed. But what's interesting about it is I want to open the meeting with like the most uncomfortable questions, because I think that not only do I want the Penn folks to better understand our business, and I want to hear from them about what they care about and what do they value and what's important to their business, and most importantly, what do they need from us. I also want to put the elephant in the room of like, here's what we're worried about. How do we keep Barstool after Barstool's owned by somebody else? Huge question. Everyone in this company is thinking about it. Second question, are we going to be able to grow as fast when we're owned by a parent company, when we have to follow processes and procedures that we've never had to, when we have to do things the way a big established company does them versus a nimble startup does them? That's a good question, because I think one of the biggest things, and I notice this in a lot of other companies, and for me it's always caused a lot of frustration, is it's good to talk about your problems. It's good to talk about the things you aren't good at. It's good to admit defeat when you've lost. It's also great to celebrate winning when you've won, but most importantly, like, what did you learn when you were winning? What did you accomplish while you were winning? How did you win? And then how do you do more of that? But I want to get to this place where I feel like businesses and companies spend so much time like blowing smoke up each other's ass and like sugarcoating everything versus being like, here's what we kick ass at, here's what we're not good at, here's what we're worried about, here's the direction we need from you, and here are the things that we're juggling with or struggling with, and we want to be transparent with you about what that looks like. I don't know if it'll work or not, but my hope is today is that that's what we accomplish, and that it creates more empathy, it creates more understanding, it creates more alignment and transparency, and then ultimately it's going to create an environment where we can have more collaboration and move forward with more success. Okay, so the other thing I'm thinking about in the boardroom is I feel like I've like fucked up a lot in the last like 3 days. I think one of the things that I'm not good at is like my trigger finger is so fast where like I hear something, it makes me mad, I learn something, and then I instantly want to react to it and do something about it. Like I was up all night last night because I'm like mad at myself about it. And I'm mad at myself about it because I think like I have a tendency to go off like half cocked. And I don't mean to, but I also care so much and I'm so passionate and I want to fix things. And so, we're going through this process here where we're doing budgeting and we're looking at what is the growth number going to be for next year? What is our revenue target for next year? And, one of the weird places I find myself in is that I have a boss now, which I talked about last week. I have a boss for the first time. So I'm like, I got to set this guy's expectation about what we are capable of and what we're not capable of, and also what the risks are and the opportunities are that I want to go after or that I want Penn to be aware of. And one of the things about growing so fast and so openly and so organically for so long is that it's hard for people don't want to be in a box here. I don't want to be in a box here. I hate being in a box. But having expectations and being in a box, I think, can be two different things. And I'm trying to find a way that we can be most empowering and most in control of our destiny, I guess. And the thing where I'm screwing up is like, what's happening is everyone, like yesterday I came to work and there were 100 asks for heads. Okay. So at the beginning of 2022, we had 300 people here. By June of this year, we had 370. So we're growing so significantly month over month in terms of headcount that it's unsustainable. And then, when I talk to the salespeople or when I talk to the commerce people, they're like, hey, like, we don't want a crazy revenue number next year, right? I don't think we're going to hit this crazy revenue number. The ad business is imploding. Consumers aren't spending. There's way more competition than there used to be. And so now I'm at this little bit of a crossroad where I'm like, fuck, everybody wants all their heads. Nobody wants to sign up for the revenue number. I think Barstool kind of kills itself sometimes where we lose the Barstool of it all when we're so focused on making money. And I don't want that. So I think I did a not great job of going off half-cocked. And then I think I made it worse by having a conversation, but not facilitating the conversation in a way where people could process it and come up with the right conclusions around it. So now everybody's all pissed off because everybody's not going to get their head count. They're mad at me. They don't want to change the way they're doing things. They don't want to work together. They don't want to be told no about all the heads they want to hire. And they also don't want to sign up for a revenue target that's more than X% growth year over year. So it's like, I got to do a better job of managing that. So that's my rant today of the things I'm not good at right now. All right, so speaking of trying to be better and be a better version of yourself, let's talk about Quillbot. So Quillbot, you put in all of your thoughts. I probably should have put in my half-cocked email about everybody's headcount asks and how much we're growing year over year. If I had done the right thing, I would have put that email in Quillbot, and Quillbot would have said, do not send that email. That is not a good email to send. Maybe they wouldn't have done that. But what Quillbot would have done is it would have paraphrased my email to probably be a whole heck of a lot nicer, way more succinct, and far better written. So what Quillbot does is it uses AI to take all of your garbled thoughts and to make them more cohesive and more succinct. The job market is going to get tighter. The need for communication is always getting greater. And if you use Quillbot, you can take all of your thoughts, all of your passion, all of your meaning, all of your intention, and then you have a tool that makes it sound better and helps you get what you want. So if you go to quillbot.com, you can learn more. Next up is Q&A. I'm a manager and I have an attitude problem on my team. Welcome to the club. She works hard, but she's incredibly inefficient, and we have tried so many avenues to help her become less, quote unquote, overwhelmed. Recently, her responses have been disrespectful. How do you ask someone if they've checked out without specifically asking that question? I'm afraid she will get defensive and we won't get an answer. First of all, who cares if she's checked out? She sucks. So don't ask why she's checked out. What I would do is say, hey, Betty, or whatever her name is, here's my expectation. Here is what this job requires. Here are the metrics for your success. Keep them clean, keep them simple, keep it very straightforward. And then you say, I need you to meet these expectations. Expectations include attitude, right? You want to be respectful. You want to be a great team player. You want to have a winning mindset. You want to be present. You also want to get the work done. So here's what you need to do in this job. Here's what success looks like. You got to lay out what success looks like. Success is when you complete this project. Success is making your teammates feel valued. Success is getting the KPI reports done on time, whatever it is. Then you say, Betty, this is what your job is, and this is the job. There's no getting around the job. There isn't a version of this job. This is the job. And my expectation is that you are infinitely capable and completely equipped to crush this job. But the decision on if you're going to do that or not is yours. If she rises to the occasion, meets the expectations, hits the KPIs, lives up to the values you want, awesome, you guys go on your way. My gut is she's not going to, and then you need to start the performance plan process, which is to say, hey, Betty, you didn't do this, you didn't deliver this expectation. You've got to be very specific. I think people, at least at Barstool and in my career, people tend to be kind of squirrely with bad feedback. You've got to be like extremely, extremely precise. Today you did this, today this happened in the meeting. This is why this didn't meet the expectations that you set out for them. This is the consequence of those actions. You need to get really, really, really specific with her about where and when and how she's falling down. And then ultimately, I think you need to move this person out of your team, if not out of your company outright. And you need to put in the work to run the gauntlet, to support her in trying to be her best self and hitting the gauntlet, and then in taking the right action in a way that's very clear, very fair, very straightforward, and very consistent about getting her out the door. All right, so that's it for Betty. Second question. I've been at a startup for 5 years. We're doing well enough, and I continue to crush it, okay. But I've put off a raise to help the company during a tough time last year. What is the best way to approach this topic and retroactively receive or ask for a raise that I didn't obtain the year before? Okay, couple thoughts on this one. One is like, you can never go back in time, and there's no, you can never go back in time and say like, remember when I didn't get a raise? I'd like last year's raise and this year's raise. Like I think it just sounds bad. It kind of feels petty. If you're generous enough to give up your raise to help the company, then own that decision. You gave up your raise to help the company. Now that said, if the company's doing better, you go into this annual review cycle and you're like, hey, I'd like to understand what my raise looks like. I was really happy to give up my raise last year to help the company, but I want to see myself progress financially. I want to progress my career, and I'm eager to have a conversation about how this company is going to invest in me and what your thoughts are on that. One way to get a raise if the company doesn't have a lot of cash is to get equity. So you could ask for equity. The second thing you might want to do is to say, hey, how does this raise compare with standard raises at the company? So that you get a sense of like, hey, maybe the raise doesn't equal what last year's amount would have been and this year's amount, but you know that this is the best raise you could possibly get at the company, and you're doing well compared to your peer set. That shouldn't matter so much, but I think contextually that sometimes helps people. So that's how I would approach that. 3. I love this guy. This is the Australian guy in my DMs all the time. Okay, I'm the general manager of this golf course. So this guy sends me this DM with a picture of a golf course that looks like it's like an alligator swamp. It's basically like water everywhere. I'm the general manager of this golf course where we flooded from the river adjacent 3 times now in 3 consecutive weekends. Note to self, this golf course doesn't seem to be optimally situated. Do you have any advice on how to deal with staff and keeping them engaged when there's an interruption in the normal flow of work? Also, how do I best reward the workers who chip in so much during the cleanup? I think that's a really great question, actually. So shit happens. Like, shit happens in your life, shit happens in your family, shit happens at work, shit happens in the environment. I mean, the environment is basically going to like hell in a handbasket. So I would imagine that if you flooded 3 times in 3 weeks, there's a lot of flooding in your future. I think the best thing to do when work is interrupted or something deviates from the norm, I don't know, this could be me and you could totally disregard it, is to just get people busy. So if the golf course can't be open and functioning because of the flooding, then have people do projects that help with the flooding or help communicate to the members of the golf course or your constituents of what's happening and why. Like, put people to work. I think when people are busy, they're clear on what they're supposed to work on and they're empowered to do it. People generally tend to be like pretty happy and well situated. So I would, instead of having people lolling around or not getting the hours that they thought they were going to get this weekend, find jobs for people to do. And then the second thing is do a team dinner. Send a personal note to everyone. Get them t-shirts, like give them some type of gift. I think it's great to bring everyone together and show them your appreciation. I also think a handwritten note goes so far in terms of making people feel good and feel appreciated. You might also want to create something funny like the flood awards, where every time there's a flood, you give out, you have an awards ceremony for who worked the hardest or whose feet got most wet or who fell in the pond or whatever it may be. Like, you could make something funny that gives people something to look forward to in a really hard time. Okay, Ridge Wallet. I have my Ridge Wallet here, my gold flecked Ridge Wallet. This is my Ridge Wallet. What's awesome about the Ridge Wallet is you can run over it. It is so durable. So I put my Ridge Wallet in my Mathew jacket, which is pretty awesome. What's great about the Ridge Wallet is if you happen to be walking down the street in New York City, which is becoming more disgusting by the day, and someone has RFID technology and they're going to zap all your credit cards from the building across the street, your Ridge wallet will protect you from that. So it's not only extremely durable, but it's got like whatever force blockers are preventing the gamma rays or whatever's trying to steal your credit card information from your wallet. The other thing that's great, it holds a bunch of credit cards. You can put cash in here. And if you go to ridge.com, you can get all sorts of colors, you can get all sorts of styles. You can use code Erika for 10% off your order. So ridge.com, Erika's the code, 10% off your order. All right, so closing thoughts. So one of the things I loved about Charissa is, one, just how much she loves football. So football, I had a meeting with a reporter this morning, and the reporter was like, God, you guys are just so football centric. And the reality is we really are. Like Dave and Dan were always really football centric. Kevin, all the early Barstool guys, Fights, obviously, were just really, really into football. They bet football, they watched football obsessively, they rooted for their teams, they hated on each other. And football is a really big business for us here. So not only is it, I think, where we do some of our best work, so Sports Advisors, which I think is the single best show that we do, is all about football betting. We're also doing the College Football Show, which had a live show. Last weekend we were at LSU for the opening of the Barstool Sportsbook there. This weekend we actually have a doubleheader. So we're doing 2 shows, 2 states in one day. So we're going to Penn State in the morning. So for anybody listening to this, if you are at Penn State, we'll be there for the game against Ohio State at 10 a.m. Then we're flying all the way to Michigan. So the game at Michigan's at 5:30 for Michigan State, Michigan. So first time we've ever done this. We've got crews at Penn State right now. We've got a crew at Michigan. Going to be a big undertaking. Hopefully the weather is good so the guys can get, and Casey can get from one place to another. We've never done dual broadcasts in one day. I also think it's kind of strange or unique that we're doing it with one set of talent. So we're pretty fired up about that. Speaking of football in general, I think one of the things I love most about football is it's where we do some of our best, most creative work, especially in merch. So our merch team and our creative team crushes it around football. Last weekend was the Eagles game versus the Cowboys, right? So we've got people rooting for the Cowboys, probably not really. We've got a lot of people rooting for the Eagles. Game ended, Eagles coach is like, that's a game, fuck you. We have it on a t-shirt. We're selling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of t-shirts to Phillies fans because of something that their coach said. And I think what makes Barstool so unique is that we're one of the only companies that is paying that close of attention, that makes the merchandise that quickly, that gets it posted, that gets it promoted, that gets it out in people's hands by this week, so that when people watch the game this weekend, they've got you, fuck you, that's the game. They've got their t-shirts in hand. We're doing this, obviously, Phillies on a tear. I have never seen so many Phillies hats in my entire life. So the Phillies are on a tear. That's great for us. We do a lot of business in the Northeast. But it's also really interesting of how we've evolved in terms of, we used to just have our teams, right? If the Patriots weren't in the playoffs, our P&L was going to really take a hit. We did not make the type of money we made when the Patriots were in the playoffs, or the Eagles. But now when you look at, 2 weekends ago or 3 weekends ago, there was the Tennessee-Alabama game. Massive upset. Tennessee beats Alabama. We put t-shirts on sale and did literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of t-shirts for a team that I would say 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we wouldn't have had anywhere near the impact. And that's the power of the Viceroy program. That's the power of our merch team. That's a power of just being fast twitch and being able to be responsive to what's happening in sports and what's happening on the internet. And that's what I'm so excited about. Like, I think the broadcasters do their broadcast thing. I think what's happening with Amazon and the NFL is crazy exciting if you look at the impact on Prime and the subscriptions to Amazon just driven by Thursday Night Football. I think that's super, super, super exciting. But I also think, in terms of being on site, being part of the excitement, creating fervor around football and sports, and then being able to monetize that in a way that makes people feel closer to the game, closer to their team, closer to their school. Nobody does that the way we do it. So that's my closing thoughts. We will see you back here next week, and that's it.